Hello there ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Hearthstone. It's Asker here for Nerf TV, and today we've got another deck guide for you. So this deck was designed to basically give players who don't either have a huge budget or don't have a massive selection of cards yet, a good strong deck to go into competitive mode with, and I gotta say it works really effectively. Now I can't take the full credit for this deck design. It's basically a combination of a few other decks that have been floating around. I've played about of it, tested out a few different things, and this is the final result. And it's really nice. Basically we've got nothing higher than an epic card in, nothing higher than a rare card, sorry, in here. No epics, no legendaries, and most of it's made up of commons and basic cards anyway. The mana curve, as you can see, is pretty much shot. It's sort of a weird spike there on the 3-drops, but let's run through what we've got. So Earthshock is a silence that also deals 1 damage to an enemy minion, useful for removal or just silencing a minion on the field. Lightning Bolt, deal 3 damage, overload you by 1. Good strong removal card. Don't really want to play it too early if you can avoid it, but it can be useful for getting rid of anything big and scary that comes out too early on in the game. Rock Biter Weapon, give a friendly character plus 3 attack this turn. So useful, you can apply this to your hero if you wanted to either remove a minion from the board or attack the enemy hero, or you could apply it to something that's actually one of your minions on the board to then get items to trade a lot better than they would do normally. Stormforged Axe, an important card to try and get your hands on early in the game. There's 2 of these in the deck. You get 3 attacks with it, and it deals 2 damage per attack, and very useful for early game removal and controlling the board. Don't be afraid to attack quite aggressively with this into enemy minions. The Flame Tongue Totem, adjacent minions have +2 attack. It's a 0/3, but it will buff up anything around it, and it is a really useful card. Players tend to disregard it and focus on the ones to the either side of it, so it can be quite useful and hang around for a little while if you're quite lucky. The Loot Hoarder, which has a death rattle of draw a card, it's a 2/1, gives a little bit of card draw to the deck, something I felt it needed, and a good early game minion, because apart from that we don't really have anything that can deal any damage in the early game. Feral Spirits, an incredibly powerful card. This summons 2/3 Spirit Wolves with Taunt and overloads you by 2. So a very powerful early game card. You can get this out. Normally this sort of thing would be like a 5-drop or something like that. But giving yourself 2 Taunt out on the board can be very effective. And obviously if you can get the Flame Tongue Totem out the following turn, that can then make a very powerful combination. Hex in here for some removal. Do keep in mind though, it will turn whatever you attack into a taunt, so you're going to have to go through it a second time before you can get it completely off the board. Lava Burst, deal 5 damage, overloaded by 2, a solid finisher or some removal on an enemy minion. Lightning Storm, this is a card you really want to get in the early game if you can. This will basically break any rushdown deck, so turn 3 drop, this will basically wipe out anyone who's trying to rush you down and clear their entire board away. So Murloc decks, Hunter decks, all that kind of thing that's relying on a lot of rushdown at the moment, that's a great counter. The Mana Tie Totem, at the end of your turn draw a card. So this is our second piece of card draw. Really you want to play the Mana Tie Totem when it's not going to die. You want to try to hopefully get a few cards out of it if possible. Otherwise it's a free cost for no actual card draw, and that's a massive shame, and it's a fairly weak minion having no attack at all. Unbound Elemental, whenever you play a card with Overload, gain +1/+1. So obviously he's quite useful if you can combine it with the Lightning Bolt, the Stormforged Axe, Feral Spirits, all that kind of thing. If you can actually play him out and then Feral Spirits the following turn, or even on the same turn, and protect him, then you can buff him up quite effectively for a few turns before they actually manage to get rid of your Feral Spirits. Next up we have the Defender of Argus, give adjacent minions +1/+1 and Taunt. Again useful for buffing up the Feral Spirits in the later game, making them more effective throughout the entire match, and also useful for just protecting your hero, because you're going to play quite aggressively with your hero in the early game using the Rock Biter Weapon and the Stormforged Axe. You're going to take quite a bit of damage, so in the later game it's nice to be able to defend yourself a little bit. Now, Bloodlust is sort of our key finisher move in the deck. This gives your minions +3 attack this turn, every minion you've got out on the board. So basically, if you've got 3 minions out on the board, you're going to add an extra 9 potential damage to them. So this is the one you really want to play out when you've got a few on the board, and you're just going to rush down the enemy hero. It's pretty much your finishing move. Next up we have the Azure Drake, spell damage +1 and Battlegraph, draw a card. The spell damage obviously synergizes really nicely with a few of our AoE attacks, and it's also giving us some more card draw. And speaking of card draw, we have the Auctioneer in here, which is going to synergize really well with a lot of these spells that we have that are fairly low cost to give ourselves even more card draw. So basically these sort of last few cards are really about getting quite a few minions out on the board, so then you can Bloodlust to go for the finisher. So you've got good card draw to give yourself enough cards to get that Bloodlust and get the minions out on the board. Finally, we have 2 fire elementals, deal 3 damage as a battle cry, so one of the most powerful battle cries in the game. Basically, if you're lucky, you should be able to use this to remove something from the board. And also he's going to come out as a 6/5 for only 6 cost, which is fairly good on the stats as well. Now, he's a very strong card, he's fairly hard to remove, he's going to trade fairly effectively. If you can actually use that battle cry to remove something from the board, something else is going to have to attack into him, and he's probably going to take that whatever attacks into him with it. So a very useful card there. So basically, as you can see, the deck really revolves around the early game just controlling the board, try to keep them from rushing you down. You've got the Rockbiter weapon, the Stormforged axe to use your hero to attack into stuff. You've got a few cards to give you some board control and feral spirits and buff them up using the Flame Tongue totem. You've got some AoE in there with Lightning Storm to avoid any rushdown decks, and then as you get into the later game, you'll like Unbound Elemental and buff it up if you can, Defender of Argus to keep yourself defended nicely, Azure Drake and Gadgets on Auctioneer for some card draw, finally Bloodlust, and use the Fire Elementals for your finishing combination, making this a very good deck. I would recommend people to give it a go, even if you don't actually play much Shaman. This is a good intro deck as well, because it's fairly simple to get to grips with. The main finisher is going to come from Bloodlust. Obviously you can just wear your enemy hero down as well. All the cards work really nicely together, there's a really nice balance through the deck, and it all feels really good. So if you give it a go, let us know what you think of it. Like I say, it's a combination of a number of popular decks at the moment, so I hope you enjoy it. But for now, I've been Asky here for Nerf TV. Thank you for watching.